Thank you. Just so you guys know, it will be recorded. So, and this will be available to you all afterwards in case you had any questions that you didn't get answered, or if you didn't write them down and you needed refreshing, it will be on our website. We'll distribute it to the Woodlawn Chamber and to Dr. Williams so she can have that as well. And it will be at your disposal. So let's get started. Thank you guys all for being here. I hope this is going to be really informative for you and give you all the information you're looking for as far as zoning, some legal advice and for that zoning and real estate, financial, just basic kind of let's talk business and see what you have. I wanted to let you all know that it is interactive, so feel free to ask a question as we go. I will start and ask a question, but don't hesitate to raise your hand, interject if you have any questions, okay? And that's it. So as I guess, interim executive director of Empower, I just wanted to say a few words about Empower. So we are a 501c3 and we were founded in 2016, nonprofit, and we're based in Chicago. What we want to do and what we thrive to do, our goal is provide assistance to all the neighborhoods in Chicago, and we focus more on the areas where they have less resources, less funding, and they have more questions. So our goal is just to help you reinvest in your neighborhoods any way we can as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and provide you guidance. We do have a mentoring program that is free, and it is open to anyone, especially if you're on this call. Feel free to sign up with that. And you are paired with a former business owner or a current business owner who has had a lot of experience, and you can bounce ideas off of, help guide you in the right direction and take you from step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, wherever you are in that process. That's about it. Scott, do you have anything else to add on Empower? I'm putting him on the spot.
Oh, no, thank you. No, Patti, I was just perfect. And welcome to all who have joined us. And it's great to see you, and please ask questions as they come to you. And please also just give one more pitch for the mentoring program. If this is something that interests you, I can tell you as a former business owner, it is just always good to be able to sit down with someone who can ask questions that you haven't even thought to ask. And that's what the mentoring program is all about. So I turn it back to Patti. Let's get started.
All right. And then to start, I do want to say these are all presented and brought to you in our partnership with Groupon. So I do have a video that Groupon recorded for us. Nick Ghana is unable to be here. He had surgery this morning, but he did want to record a message and thank you all for presenting and being here. So I am going to play that. Bear with me. I think I set it all up, but I know how that goes. So I'm going to optimize it and go for it. All right. Fingers crossed. Can you guys see that? Okay. Hopefully you can hear it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this evening's event hosted by Dr. Williams and the Woodlawn Chamber of Commerce. Apologies on not being able to attend tonight, but my name is Nick Ghana, and I'm the Senior Program Manager of Social Responsibility at Groupon. And on behalf of our company, I just want to say how proud and excited we are to bring this event to you in conjunction with SBAC Empower and the Woodlawn Chamber. Groupon believes that entrepreneurs and small business owners are the backbone of thriving communities, and it's why we are committed to promoting initiatives that help foster the economic development and growth of small businesses. Because in reality, it's those businesses, the retailers and shops on blocks in every neighborhood, that lend a distinct personality and economic viability to the communities around them. This is why we choose to invest in partnerships with organizations like SBAC Empower and Chambers of Commerce all across the city, who are already embedded in these small business communities, really helping lay the foundation for strong local economies. We've got a wonderful slate of subject matter experts for tonight's workshop that will help small businesses navigate the processes of zoning, licensing, and leasing space, amongst other things. We've got Max Budovitch from Chicago Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, Bill Maloney from Fifth Third Bank, Katarina Karac from Birchwood Law, and Danielle Patti from LT Consultants. Thank you all for lending your time and expertise. So without further ado, enjoy the event, and I look forward to meeting you all at future workshops. Have a good night.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. I thought I was playing it twice for you. All right, so let's introduce, he introduced everybody, but I'm going to first introduce Dr. Williams. She is the Executive Director of the Woodlawn Chamber of Commerce, and without her, you wouldn't have this amazing workshop and webinar. So Dr. Williams, tell us a little bit about Woodlawn and go for it.
Thank you, Patty. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I know it's probably been a busy day for most of you, like it has been for myself. Like Patty said, I'm the Executive Director of the Woodlawn Chamber of Commerce. Essentially, we are but a small part of a larger ecosystem of organizations and businesses that work together to just encourage Woodlawn to thrive. As many of you know, there's a lot of movement happening in Woodlawn right now, with it being the future home of the Obama Presidential Center, as well as at least 8 other developments that'll be finished at the end of 2024. So we have a lot of movement going on in Woodlawn. We're excited. The Chamber is responsible for ensuring that all of our businesses get the support that they need. So whether that be access to capital, support around legalities, support around strategizing, sustainability plans, we offer support. And whatever we don't offer, we have so many awesome partners who also provide resources to our members. And so we're just excited we're excited for now, we're excited for the future, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will introduce Max, and Max is with BACP. So Max, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and telling us a little bit about and I'm going to start the questioning just with you because I know you have a limited time. Maybe tell us a little bit about BACP, what it offers, what kind of educational things that everybody on this Zoom can find just from your website.
Yes, well, thank you, Patty, and good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I can't turn on my video right now, but Patty, as you mentioned, I'm Max Budovitch, Deputy Commissioner of Licenses and Permits at the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, also known as BACP. And just a quick overview of what BACP does. The area I'm involved in is our licensing division, where we actually license businesses for business activities and operations. We also, in that licensing division, issue business permits, I should say public way use permits, not to be confused with licenses. Those are for occupation of the public way for business activities. So let's say you have a license that allows you to, for instance, sell food, like you're a restaurant. You would get a public way use permit if you wanted to have a sidewalk cafe on the sidewalk, if you wanted to have an awning extending over the sidewalk, a light fixture extending over the sidewalk, so on and so forth. So we take care of everything having to do with business licenses and permits, but also at BACP, we actually license public vehicles. We have an enforcement division that educates businesses on code compliance and also enforces against non-compliant activity. And then we also have an education unit which reaches out to all of our 55,000, 60,000 licensees across the city to provide pertinent and timely information regarding business operations, opportunities, and so on and so forth. So that being said, where you can find all of this information and more is on our website, the BACP website, but even more particular for this group, if you go to chicago.gov/SBC, that stands for Small Business Center, that is our licensing website. And from there, you can jump off to a bunch of different BACP and city resources. And so that can be your port of call when it comes to all things licensing. Again, chicago.gov/SBC. The Small Business Center is where we actually conduct our licensing activity. That's on the 8th floor of City Hall, 121 North LaSalle. It's room 800. So we're open from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And anyone can walk in at any time and meet with one of our many business consultants there who can guide you through all of the questions you might have relating to business licensing. and actually be able to issue you your business license. So that in a nutshell is what we do.
Awesome. So on your website, because I perused it quite a bit, especially before this, are there specific city programs that are there to maybe help finance a person's business or a growing business?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, as you might know, in 2020 and 2021, we had a number of emergency programs that were grant and loan programs for businesses, really just to get through the pandemic and survive. Those programs have come to an end. However, there are perennial programs, I believe, that are offered through the Department of the Chicago Department of Planning and Development. And those come up every now and then. There are eligibility criteria, and I'm not as familiar with those, but they do. There are city resources that do make themselves available from time to time.
Great. And then, of course, I know before you go, I'm not going to let you go without talking about zoning. So I'm wondering if you and Katarina, you can piggyback on each other. Maybe tell us why zoning, what is zoning? Why is it important? And is there anything that can make it easier for somebody to navigate that process?
Yeah, so I'd be happy to start. I think in a nutshell, what zoning is, it determines from a licensing and business standpoint, it determines what business activity a business can conduct where in the city, at which addresses. So broadly speaking, in the city of Chicago, the entire city is divided into zoning districts. So the ones that you might hear most often as a business owner are probably the B districts for business. Those are the business districts, and then the C districts, the commercial districts, but there are also D districts, downtown districts, R districts, residential districts, and so on and so forth. And within each of those districts, there's subdivisions and further specifications that for a business really have to do with what exact business activities are allowed. And where it gets a little complicated is that the activities allowed, or the business types allowed, don't always align exactly with the names of the licenses. So just to cite an example, if you're a restaurant, you would get a retail food establishment license from BACP. However, the zoning use that would be applicable most likely would be a eating and drinking establishment or restaurant or something along those lines. So the terminology doesn't always align. And for that reason, what we did to make this a bit more understandable for the uninitiated is to, we have on our website a zoning module at that the chicago.gov/SBC website. You can click on the zoning box and it'll take you to a page that goes through some of this basic information and then also links to a Chicago business zoning guide, which is a shorthand guide. It's not so short, but zoning is a complex matter. So we tried to condense it down to about, I think it stands at maybe 15, 17 pages. And what it allows you to do is look by business category, broadly speaking, food, so on and so forth, retail, and you can then dive in. That's an index, and you can dive in at the appropriate page number and see exactly what type of activity you're planning to do, and then see for each of those zoning districts, B, C, D, so on and so forth, if that's allowed or not allowed. And that's just the first kind of putting your first toe in the water. From there, we do have a link to a zoning map where then you can type in your address and actually see what your address is zoned as. So as you look at that table, if it says you're allowed in a B district, well, is your address a B district or is it an R district? And now you have a problem. So it allows you just to make those basic kind of first step determinations, but ultimately we always encourage, and this really, I should have said at the very top, never to sign a lease, make any investment, do any construction, really don't do anything until you're 100% sure that your zoning is appropriate for your business activity. And what that really means is coming to us, either coming to BACP, calling our business contact center hotline, reaching out to DPD, reaching out to someone in the city or a city resource so that we can confirm for you. Because even as an example, just because let's say you have to run with the restaurant analogy, you have a location that you know was a restaurant right before you're moving into it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually allowed to have a restaurant there because of the zoning code and the zoning rules. There's time periods involved. Just because there was a restaurant there, if it lapses for too long as a vacancy, or even another type of business, it might lose that established use as a restaurant. And so you as the new restaurant coming in might not actually be able to. So we always say, even if it looks like you're totally clear to go, always come to us and we'll be happy to help you.
Wonderful. That's great information. And I'm sure that segues right into Katarina, especially since you said, don't sign a lease until you make sure that you clear it through the zoning guide and through the BACP. And I know Katarina has a little bit to talk about that as well. I've heard that a lot in the last few workshops that we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me tonight. Katarina Karac with Birchwood Law, a land use and zoning law firm. Max summarized it quite perfectly. I think the city has a lot of resources, and there's no better way to verify zoning than to work with the city. And just to kind of piggyback off of what he said, there's also a process at the city where you can request an opinion letter on the zoning. And I think that's a great tool to have and to rely on, because, you know, you may hear about zoning from your commercial broker or the landlord, the property owner, but you really need to do your due diligence before you sign the lease or purchase a property. And there's no better place to go than to the city. In addition to what Max said, although we're talking about zoning here tonight, I think it's important to keep in mind that there are other types of land use restrictions as well. And as part of your due diligence, you know, you really need to look at all types of land use restrictions, including zoning. So it could go beyond zoning, and there may be an easement, there may be a restrictive covenant, there may be some licensing in place that presents a problem. And so that's where it's really helpful to have a land use attorney, because we look at the title policy, we look at the zoning, we look at all of the, we look at the property from every single angle to make sure that you have the ability to conduct a proposed business at the premises. And yeah, I would just say, don't underestimate the importance of doing the due diligence on the zoning and land use front. Don't rely on the landlord and the commercial broker as the zoning authority, and get your advice from a land use attorney. Work with the city proactively, and yeah, he did a great job summarizing it, and that's all I can add on that front.
Awesome. So can you tell us, as we're talking about landlords, is there, after we do all our due diligence and that requires you, is it an easy process? And then I'll ask the next question because I jumped ahead there. So is it an easy process for you once they come to you and you clear and you go through that whole process of making sure everything is done? And why is it important that they do use an attorney?
I think the zoning process is complicated, and even for a sophisticated business owner, there are a lot of steps in the process. And although I think the city has great resources and does a lot to educate the public about the process itself, and especially if you're being proactive, you're contacting BACP and you're doing everything in your power to make sure that you have the information you need, even if you know what steps you need to take. It's a long and arduous process, and it can be very intimidating, especially to a new business owner. And quite frankly, it can be intimidating even to a sophisticated real estate developer. The process is, there are multiple steps. There's that due diligence phase we just talked about. You need to assemble your team. You need to understand which architects to work with, civil engineers, other professionals. You may need, depending on the business and the proposal, there sometimes you need a traffic study. There's a lot that can go into it. And then it just depends on the application type. So, the application itself requires you to notify the neighbors. For most of the different types of zoning applications, you do have to notify the neighbors within like a 250 foot distance. And it's challenging. And even if you get the application submitted, you still have to communicate with the city. They may have comments for you. You need to address those comments. Then you have a public hearing. And depending on the type of application, it's a quasi-legislative, quasi-judicial, or just an administrative hearing. It's not an easy process. And there's legal standards that are in place, and you have to demonstrate to the board or the commission or council that you met those standards.
Great. And does it matter if you're looking for a commercial or a live work situation in terms of attorney, or does one attorney kind of get it all?
Yeah, so the live work situations are tricky, in my opinion, and it's because of that intersection between residential and commercial or business, depending on what you're proposing to do. Typically, you'd see it with like an artist studio and residential, but I find them to be even more complicated because there's that lease component, the commercial lease component, then there's also the residential, there's maybe building code requirements that you need to consider, licensing, zoning, it's all of the above. So, depending on the business and the proposed use, it may or may not be advisable to go with a live work situation. And I always say, depending on the type of business and where you are in your business journey, it is a lot easier to keep the residential and the commercial or business use separate if possible. I'm a big proponent of the virtual office idea, especially if you are in like a professional setting and are looking for an opportunity to just get started. If you're more established, it's just a lot easier to keep the residential and the commercial uses separate.
Great. I have a question, and this is probably just me. This is just me asking. So, and this is going to address Bill as well as you. Does it matter as far as funding if it is? And I know Katarina corrects me every time I say live work, but live work situation, does it affect how somebody would talk to you, Bill, as far as financially?
Yeah, 100% actually. And good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Maloney. I'm with Fifth Third Bank. Pleasure to be here tonight. Yeah, in the case of providing financing from a banking perspective to a business owner, we would have a really hard time wrapping our arms around someone who lives and works in the exact same location looking for a business type loan. We would really prefer, as Katarina said, kind of having that separation, you live here and then you work over here type of situation. And then in particular, a lot of banks are going to have guidelines in regards to how much occupancy you actually have within the location that you work out of in order to be eligible for certain commercial financing. So if you typically have to operate out of 51% or more of your location, and that's determined by the amount of square footage that you take up within that location. So that's something to be cognizant of. It has to be spelled out in the lease that you put in place to make sure that you're eligible for the commercial financing. Again, depending on what you are looking for at the end of the day.
Okay, and if you're talking to your landlord or your potential landlord, and you have some ideas of how you want to revamp the space, what would that entail? Do you put it into your contract? And that's Katarina, Bill, whomever, anybody can jump in too, and anybody can ask questions. I'm just going to keep on moving unless somebody jumps in.
Yeah,
so is there anything specific that we need to know if we were to?
Yeah, I think Katarina can probably jump into like the legalese around it a lot better than I can, but especially if you're leasing space, and landlords, they're incentivized to lease out the space that they have. They'll provide, not all the time, it's something you have to negotiate, And this is something Katarina can help you with. This is something that, if you have tenant representation through a leasing agent, can also help you with to negotiate this with the landlord. But they can provide something called the tenant improvement allowance, or a TIA or TI. If you hear TI as a business term, it usually means tenant improvements. And in that case, your landlord will actually provide money for you to revamp the physical space that you're going to operate out of. Now, in this case, they're not going to provide you with the money to buy couches and everything like that. Or computers, the soft costs that go along with opening up a business, but they will help to provide physical, like, kind of redecoration of the interior space. Now, the caveat behind this, though, is they're typically, again, this is typical, they're not going to provide that money up front for you. So if you're able to negotiate, say, $50,000 of tenant improvements, they're going to actually expect you to fund that ahead of time. And then they're going to reimburse you for it at the end of the day. So in these cases, you actually have to have the capital already behind you. And then you have to hire a contractor, save all your receipts, right? Because they're going to want to see it. They're going to need proof of work, all this stuff that's been completed, all the things that you have changed structurally throughout their property. They're going to need proof of all of that. And then once all of it is completed, you submit all of this information to your landlord, and then they will actually reimburse you. In terms of the negotiation, I'll let Katarina talk a little bit about that.
So in commercial real estate, it's all negotiable, and you just have to make sure that you're being reasonable with your request and that you're thinking long-term. For example, if you advocate for a low monthly payment on the lease, don't be surprised if the landlord requires you to be responsible for almost all or all of the maintenance and repair on the entire building or the property. And so, it may seem appealing for you to advocate for a low monthly payment, but even though it's attractive initially, there could be costly improvements down the road. And if you fail to maintain the building, the landlord can sue you for failing to maintain it pursuant to the agreement. So be careful, be careful what you're signing. Understand the condition of the unit and of the building as well. And just make sure that you are thinking long-term. And you want to set your business up for success. And part of that is negotiating reasonable terms. And what may seem like a win in the short run, it may actually be a losing proposition for all. So just make sure that you're looking at the complete picture.
And Bill and Katarina and Danielle, what sort of documents would I need in order to present to the landlord? What should I have in my packet, per se, as I go to the landlord and say, what's going to make him or her say, you're a great candidate? What do I need?
Yeah, so I guess, Patti, it kind of depends on what you're looking to get out of the relationship with your landlord. If you are trying to negotiate tenant improvements, they're going to look into the history of the business. Are you guys actually a viable organization that I can expect to be here long term? Because if they're, again, we'll go back to that $50,000, aspect that I tossed out earlier. Are you going to be here for a long time? Are you a viable business? Because I'm sinking $50,000 of my own money into this. I want to make sure that I get my return on investment to ensure that you stay through the tenure of your lease, right? Now, if you're not looking to do any sort of tenant improvements, if you're just looking to move in and start operating, maybe you found the perfect space that's ready to go for you. You don't really have to do a whole lot for it. Then it's just negotiating good terms with your landlord. Then it's, making sure that you have your proper business license. It's making sure that you're incorporated appropriately. It's making sure that the lease is reviewed appropriately. I think a lot of this and what you're going to hear tonight kind of centers around who you surround yourself with and ensuring that you're working with reputable individuals that can help you along many different aspects of starting your business and getting you up and running through a retail space. And that goes with your bank, that goes with your attorney, that goes with, your your CPA, your accountant, however you want to talk about that. You know, they're two different things, but and then it goes along with the individual that's kind of helping you broker the deal with your landlord, and just making sure you're surrounding yourself with people that you trust, people that can review the information that's being presented, and make sure that
I don't know if that's me or Bill. Bill?
I think we lost Bill
We lost Bill.
for a moment.
And I was going to ask, you know, while he's sitting there in transition and frozen, I was going to ask Danielle, Katarina, what is it, because Bill alluded to it, what is it that you should ask your potential funder, your potential lawyer, to know that they're the right person? I know it's all about relationship, but are there specific things that you would recommend asking in order to find that connection and that feel?
Well, I'll jump in. Essentially, you wanna have already done your research on that attorney. First of all, there's a great site, Martindale Hubble, that most attorneys are on. You can background check that attorney. Once you have a conversation, you want to know how much of this type of work does this attorney really do? Is this their specialty? A firm like Katarina's would be perfect for someone looking to open a new, brick and mortar storefront location. But it's all in your research. It's all in what you put into it, is to find a right match.
Yeah, chiming in on what Danielle just said, there are different types of real estate attorneys too. So that's something to keep in mind. Somebody who helps you negotiate the lease may not be somebody who does your zoning for you. And I think it's a good rule of thumb to look at a person's website. Do they have a website? Do they have a LinkedIn? Do they put themselves out there as attorneys are not allowed to call themselves experts, but do they put themselves out there as someone who specializes or focuses on this type of this area of the law? For example, if somebody's saying, hey, I handle family law and litigation, they may not be a good fit for you if you're looking for assistance with zoning or with a real estate transaction. So sometimes, in a commercial real estate world, you may need a litigation attorney, someone who focuses on commercial litigation, financing attorney. There are attorneys that just do that. So it just depends on what you need, and don't be afraid to work with different professionals. It may actually be more cost efficient for you to have a couple of different attorneys that are assisting you with a couple of different needs. Also, besides the website thing, talk to the attorney, talk to them, interview them, ask them questions. Have you done projects like this before? Have you had success? What challenges do you foresee with my proposal? Do you think, what are the, can you, based on your experience, do you think we're likely to succeed with our request? How long will it take? Can you give me an estimate of how much it will cost? Those are all really good questions to ask. And another thing is, is the attorney accessible? Sometimes attorneys don't answer their phones or emails for like a long time, if at all. And so, if somebody's not really responsive or not really eager to talk to you and answer your questions, they may be too busy. And that happens quite a bit with attorneys. We're just, we get swamped with work, and it may be a good sign that, it's not a good fit for you. You need another attorney, somebody who's more accessible and able to help you at the moment and answer your questions and guide you through the process.
And thanks. And Bill, I know we lost you, and I was asking everybody what is the best thing that they should, or the questions they should ask to build a relationship with because a relationship with your financial advisor or bank is really important, especially if you need to secure funding. So if there's anything in particular that you think somebody should ask in order to make that connection, and then I guess, is there documentations that 100% need to be presented in order to secure funding? Those are two separate questions I just asked you, but
Those are two very big questions. And my apologies for dropping off. Let's fingers crossed this works out this time for us, right? So in terms of, your banking relationship, the biggest thing you want to ask, things you want to look for, I guess, I always tell my clients, it's not really about where you bank so much, it's about who you bank with. You want to make sure you're actually working with somebody who has been doing this for a little bit of time, who actually understands what the processes look like, and just asking them to kind of provide some detail around what you can expect through this process will pretty much answer any questions you might have about, is this a good fit for me or not? If they cannot articulately detail out exactly what the process is going to look like, what timelines are going to look like, then you might not be working with the best banker. You might be working with somebody who's only been in the industry for a year or two. You want to find somebody who can very clearly articulate exactly what's going to happen. Now, I did say it's not really so much about where you bank, it's about who you bank with. Depending on the type of request and relationship you're looking for, certain banks can offer different things. So working with a very, very large bank can be really advantageous for technology and ease of access, right? You look at some of our larger banks out there, great apps, great easy ways to move your money around, really accessible from that standpoint. But sometimes you're just a transaction. Sometimes you don't have anybody that you can just call up and go to and have them answer your questions. Now, if you go to a smaller bank, they aren't going to have the technology that you're looking for. They're not going to things aren't just going to be super simple and easy with them, but they might be a little bit more flexible in how they offer financing. You might just be able to call, your loan officer directly on their cell phone or text them and say, hey, looking for an update here. And typically, again, when you come in with a financing request, they're going to make that decision on Monday morning in a room full of people, as opposed to going to a big bank where it's, give me your information and kind of fingers crossed, let's see if this works type of situation, because there's an algorithm that actually determines if we're going to do this or not. So it's, depending on what you're looking for, I think that's going to make a big determination on where you bank. Now, again, once you figure out where you're going to bank, start figuring out who you want to bank with in that institution. Now, Patti, you asked in terms of securing financing. I'll tell you guys all kind of the basic financial package that almost any bank is going to ask you for. And there'll be a little bit of a caveat that I'll address afterwards. But typically, it's 3 years of business tax returns. It's 3 years of personal tax returns. It's a personal financial statement that your bank will provide for you that you'll have to fill out. And then any interim financial statements that you might have available. And this might also include copies of, checking account statements or something else, but that is really kind of the basic crux of what a bank's going to ask you for on the front end. Now, some of you might be sitting here and say, Bill, I don't have 3 years of business tax returns because I haven't even really opened my doors yet. So from that standpoint, there are a couple of different alternatives that you're going to want to look for. The most predominant one, the one that's gotten the most press, especially over the last few years, has been the SBA. The SBA can do a really good job at providing startup financing and capital for small business owners. The problem is not every bank's going to follow the guidelines of the SBA because they're two very different things. The bank actually has to underwrite the deal. The SBA kind of just guarantees some of the money for the bank at the end of the day. So you need to find yourself a bank that's going to be very flexible with startup financing. Not a lot of banks out there are willing to do that. When they do, they kind of do charge a premium. So you have to determine if that's the right route for you to go. If you determine that that's not the right route for you to go, there are many different fintechs out there that can offer personal loans, typically up to about $25,000 with pretty flexible repayment terms. You could also look at taking out liens against your personal residence, which is something that a lot of small business owners will do to get startup financing going, be that through a first mortgage, second mortgage, home equity line. And then the final aspect is kind of crowdsourcing the money through friends and family. They can also provide you with kind of forgivable loans that you don't actually have to pay back. And then some of you might also be saying, well, Bill, I don't want to, take out money on my own. I don't want to be liable for this. The unfortunate aspect is almost every time, not every time, but almost every time you take out a loan with a bank from a commercial standpoint, you're going to be providing an unlimited personal guarantee, meaning at the end of the day, if all else fails, you are going to be personally liable to repay. So you're really just taking a gamble on yourself to ensure that you're taking a gamble on yourself, saying that you are going to be successful, that you are going to see this business through, and that you are going to repay the money that you've taken out at the end of the day. So I would say start with the SBA aspect and work your way back through that, because the SBA is going to give you the best terms, and then they're going to kind of get slowly worse as you move down that line a little bit.
Patti, if I can jump in here, and if this all seems very overwhelming to everyone who's starting a business or not sure what to do, that's where chambers come in. We've formed relationships with the various roles that you've been hearing about today, the various attorneys, the banks, the architects, so your chambers, if you're just like, I don't have any clue where to start, your chamber should be able to support you in that.
And now that we have you here, can you tell us maybe what is going on in Woodlawn? Do you see any trends there? Do you have any space that if anybody here who is on the call or listening could tap or contact you to see if it's available?
Yes, I can put my email address in the chat. I will be totally transparent with everyone. It is hard to acquire space right now in Woodlawn. Folks kind of started acquiring that space a couple years ago, but relationships are important. Relationships with developers and chambers, and that kind of has helped a lot of our businesses. And so we actually, and she just got off, one of our ambassadors is an awesome real estate guru, and she's one of the people that we refer folks to once we understand kind of the checklist of like what they're looking for, what have they done so far. A lot of the criteria that has been discussed here tonight, just to even see if they're ready, because what we find is, a lot of people when they're starting out, they're excited. Maybe they're moving their home-based business into a brick and mortar for the first time, and they don't listen to great folks like we have on tonight, or they don't have access, and they do get kind of caught up in the, they didn't check for zoning, and they're like, oh, we're going to serve alcohol. Well, actually, you're not, because that's not zoned for that. And we do have folks that get a little bit discouraged with the zoning process. So that's why we have relationships with BACP and folks where we just, hold them accountable for providing the knowledge. But yeah, in regards to space, it's not impossible in Woodlawn right now, but it is hard to come by depending on what types of businesses you want to run in those spaces. But I can definitely put my information and we can have a chat. We can see where you are and what you're looking to do.
Awesome. And then just for anybody who is listening, we're also going to send this out so people know who the contact is. If they want to get in touch with you, Dr. Williams, we'll have that information in there, as well as Katarina, Bill, Danielle, and Max as well, who put it in the chat, but anybody who's watching, I don't think sees the chat. So I'm going to leave it there because I've asked questions. Are there questions that Katarina, Bill, Danielle, Dr. Williams, you think are really important for somebody to know, or something like any kind of education that you think somebody here who is listening or on this call should know that I didn't ask?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in just for a quick minute, Patti, and because this has all been super great advice. And one other thing I would add to the list is, as a sort of a new owner of a business, be prepared to sell yourself. I mean, the very first sale you're probably going to make as a business owner is selling your business idea and your track record and your dreams and the potential of the business to a banker or to a potential owner. And you need to think about how you're going to sell your idea and your business to all these other people whose help you need to make your dream come true.
I'm glad Scott said that, because that kind of ties into what I was going to say is, in terms of selling yourself, before you even open those doors, you have to know it's about type of business, what's in that area, your location, right? They tell you location is everything. Is there a similar business? How far is the similar business to your location? right? Because if you don't know that, you're starting off wrong, because then you're looking at competition, you're looking at how you have to market yourself. And again, that marketing yourself goes into selling yourself. If you're pitching to an investor, you have to have the right pitch to land that investor, and all of that ties into your marketing. Your funding is so important. Everything Bill said is so important, because you have to think in a mindset of, when I open these doors, how will I have to make it? Most small businesses, the struggle is really in your first 6 months to your first year, especially when you own a brick and mortar, especially with today's society, with everything going so virtual and online stores and a lot of drop shipping. If you're a retailer, you have to think about all of the ramifications. What if another pandemic happens? In post-pandemic phase, your mind has to think of a pivot in advance before you get to the pivot, right? You have to think about, what if this happens again? How will I sustain? Is my business sustainable? Is my business needed? And what's the niche to my business? What is going to make me stand out? So those are all the kind of things that you have to think about before you even open those doors. And when you open it, funding wise, if I don't make a sale, can I afford this overhead? What kind of security blanket have I afforded myself for the first 6 months to a year? That's my piece.
Awesome. I also wanted to say, along with that, I think that's why don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I need somebody. And I don't want to throw the mentoring program out again, but it is open to anybody. Feel free to ask us if you want somebody to bounce those ideas off and go through that whole process that Danielle just described, and everybody else here, because that's why we're here, is to help you grow and be what you want to be and see that big picture. That's the reason why we're here, and that's the reason why we're doing these workshops, is just to see how we can help you be what you want to be and be who you think you
I
can
have
be.
a question for Dr. Williams. You mentioned, you said before that there's not much space left in Woodlawn. Do you mean like commercial space or office space?
More so commercial space. So folks looking to, as it stands right now. Now we have 6 to 8 new developments that are coming and will be completed by the end of 2024 that will offer some more additional commercial space. But as it stands right now, not a lot. And what's available, I like what Danielle said, you have to be prepared for that overhead, because costs have increased. They began to increase the moment they announced the center was coming. And so what we try to do is, it's still doable. We just prepare folks for what exactly the way Danielle just said. And even folks that are currently, they may have been in business 20 years, we help them sustain themselves, or come up with some sort of sustainability plan. But yes, there's a lot of new development coming to Woodlawn that will offer more space. And so we're in at the ground level now, like talking with folks like DL3 Realty, who's a big developer in Woodlawn. And we're making sure that we're at the table to act as that bridge now to get folks ready to get into those spaces when they are completed.
I mean, that seems like a good problem to have, because everywhere else, I mean, even I was downtown in the Loop a couple of days ago, it's like a ghost town. So there's empty commercial space everywhere you go, right? So what makes Woodlawn so unique that people are flocking there to look for space? Is it location, or is it something else that the town offers?
Good question, Mark. Simply put, it's the moment they announced that the Obama Presidential Center would be built, because of all it's expected to be, not just to the local economy, but surrounding economies. Developers moved in right away. People who don't even live in this country moved in and began to just purchase everything. Even as it pertains to residential rents, we saw immediate rental almost double. The rents almost doubled in areas that aren't as nice as other areas. And when I tell you it happened overnight, it literally happened overnight. The average 2-bedroom apartment right now, and some of the not so good. So there's a really great part of Woodlawn that has been built up, and then there's the part that they are building up now. But in that part, an average 2-bedroom apartment for rent, nothing special, no stainless steel appliances is close to $2,200 right now. And so the commercial spacing, you're not finding, and I'm talking a simple, forgive me, I can't think of the actual measurements right now, but just a simple basic storefront, you're not going to pay less than $3,300, $3,500 a month. And that's standard. That's not even like there's rooms in the back, and so we are not here ever to crush anybody's dreams, but we lay it out very realistically and help them get prepared for what is to come, because it's inevitable, really. You know, between the University of Chicago, the city of Chicago, and Bishop Brazier, they pretty much own the south side of Chicago. And so a lot of the development that you see coming, it has to come because there won't be enough room for what folks really want to do.
Do you see this demand as like short term, or is it going to be long term because of the library?
Oh, I think it'll be pretty long term because it's been going on for years now. You know, I forget the exact announcement of the center, but it's been going on for years now. And the thing is, you know, once that movement starts, because it's not just happening on the south side, it's happening on the west side as well. There's a ton of new development just coming to both sides of town, depending on where you are. So you think about if you live in the South Shore community, look at how you're positioned right off of Lakeshore Drive. And so those who are business minded, right, we all think about the future. We purchase for the future, not for the right now. And that is what everyone is doing.
Well, do you see a lot of small businesses like in your chamber that are now being priced out because of rents going up too high, having forced to move out or relocate?
So
That, you know, this happened, I totally believe you that it happened overnight, right? So that does create a lot of problems for people that just can't keep up.
So it's almost like you've been in the rooms with us when we're acting as that bridge for our folks, because when that announcement was made, the biggest fear of the community of business owners, residents was that they were going to get displaced, right? They were going to get priced out. And so the Obama Foundation is actually one of our partners, and through us, we have worked to hold them accountable for things like there's a certain percentage of their contractors even working on the center that have to be local, right? There is a certain percentage of the development that's being built that needs to be affordable, right? Affordable housing. We are working to negotiate with our developers, with the Obama Foundation, even as it pertains to commercial space, you know, especially if a business hasn't been in business for more than 5 years, perhaps they will be charged a little bit below market rate rent until they get to a certain point. So that's where we come in. And when I tell you we are feeling the pressure, we are feeling the pressure, but we just believe in, you know, holding people accountable to do what they said that they would do and advocating. And that's really it. The truth of the matter is, whenever there's a movement such as this is not the first time in history something like this has taken place. There are folks who are displaced, but you know, our job is to try to cut down on that as much as possible. So we've been working on this for years. It's
amazing. Well, I'm glad you have plans set in place and all this has been, you know, kind of thought through. So that sounds great. And all the best to your chamber and helping your members keeping in business there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And that, my friends, is why you should always contact your chamber when you're opening a business, right there.
Yes, exactly.
Chamber first, and then you can get everything else, but they'll always guide you and they'll always give you a direction. They're not going to leave you hanging. They want you in their neighborhood as well.
Then you don't have to work through the politics. Let us do that. As much as I hate to, I really hate to, let us work with our elected officials. Let us kind of negotiate and do things like that, because that can be a headache in and of itself, in all due respect. But
That's wonderful. So does anybody else have any questions, or does anybody have a last say? I know I did a really bad job of introducing Danielle, Katarina, and Bill. So if you have any last words, feel free. I kind of just threw you in the fire. So feel free to say anything, but I really want to thank Birchwood Law, Fifth Third, and LT Consultants, as well as the Woodlawn Chamber and BACP for even being here to give these really important webinars, so people know that they're not alone and there's questions that they can just come here and have some of them answered. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys.
I think you did a pretty okay job getting everybody introduced, and then Groupon threw us a plug there too. With me being on the board for Empower, I'm always available. Anybody can reach me through Patti. They can reach out to us directly through LT Consultants website. Google us, we're there. You can find us on social media, but we focus on small to medium-sized businesses. We are here to help you grow. We're here to make sure your marketing strategies are in place, because if I can't say it enough until I'm blue in the face, sustainability, being a business that is essential. If the pandemic taught us nothing, to make sure that your business is essential and sustainable.
Just so you know, you guys, these guys are all mentors too. So like I'm saying, when I say we're pulling from a pool of fabulous, there you go.
Fabulous is a really nice way of saying that, Patti. But guys, similar to what Danielle said, I'm very accessible. I'd love to help anybody. You don't have to bank with me. I'm happy to just, be a sounding board, answer questions. My banking career spans 15 years, from both the risk management side to relationship management to executive leadership. I've worked with large corporate entities. I've worked with startup businesses. Even for the last 10 years, I've worked in the small business space. So I understand the challenges that small business owners go through. And I can help navigate more so on the financial side of things. Probably not going to be able to do what Katarina does on lease negotiations and everything, but from level setting expectations to what a bank will bring to the table to helping you navigate due diligence from financing or purchasing. Please, Patti's going to send out our information. Do not hesitate to get in contact with me. I'm happy to help wherever I can. Here, I'll put my email in the chat. There we go.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I'm also very accessible. I answer my phone. Some people are surprised when I answer right off the bat. If I'm not in a meeting or tied up in something, I answer the phone. I respond to my emails. I try to be as helpful as I can. If it's not a matter that I can directly assist with, I try to guide the people that are reaching out as best as I can. And yeah, zoning and land use, that's what we do at Birchwood. And I'm happy to be a sounding board and talk through the issues, strategize, and provide any guidance that I can. Now, it was mentioned here that reaching out to your local chamber of commerce is a great idea. I completely agree. As a small business owner, the first thing I did when I started Birchwood was becoming a member of my local chamber. And that has been transformational for my business. I made connections with other business owners in my community that serve as mentors, serve as sounding boards for me. There's so many things that you don't know that you don't know. And as a small business owner, it's all about your network. It's all about, who can you call when you run into an issue? Who can you reach out to for marketing advice or assistance? And the more of these relationships that you build, the better off your business will be. So I can't encourage you enough to get involved with your local chamber.
Good question to the folks that are on the panel. When it comes to startup businesses, do you guys offer special consultation fees, or how does it work? If one of our businesses were to call one of you guys and say, we need some help, we need some consultation, Just curious, because I like to gather that information before I refer folks. What does it look like when they make that call? Is it a free consultation? What does that look like?
Well, for us at LT, each year we take on at least 2 pro bono clients, and we help them and coach them through their startup phase. And that's business plan. That's the idea phase. We work with them from the scratch, right? From the ground through to their launch. And we do at least 2 pro bonos a year, but for questions, we do free consultations.
At Birchwood, we provide a free consultation by phone, and you can schedule that directly on our website at www.birchwood.law. And we'll call you, we'll talk through the issue and strategize the solution with you. If there is a lot of paperwork that needs to be reviewed, I prefer to sit down with the potential client and go through the documentation and do a more thorough review of their matter. That there is a fee associated with that, but I would say that 90% of my clients come in through a free consultation. And I encourage that as the first interaction we have, just to get, so they can learn a little bit about our firm, and we can learn a little bit about them and what they need and what their business is. And like I said, you can schedule that on our website.
Yeah, Dr. Williams, if I charge for consultation, I wouldn't have to do this job anymore. No, mine are free on the front end, 100%. If you reach out to me again, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. However, I'm only able to speak to what my organization can provide and I can't tell you what Wintrust is going to do or what Chase is going to do, right? I don't work for them. But if you have questions about certain aspects from a banking perspective, I am more than happy to have a conversation with you, completely free of charge, no questions asked.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
I would also add that the Empower Mentor program is always happy to have a free consultation at any time.
Yep. It's for a year. So you can have that consultation for a year. That relationship is built the way you want it built too. So, and again, we have, see these wonderful people on here. Again, they are part of the mentoring program, and they, like Danielle and Bill, are part of the board for SBAC Empower. And I thank you all for being here, taking the time. I apologize for the little glitch at the beginning. We kept going back and forth to make sure nobody was in the other one. I don't know what happened, but I appreciate you all being here. And I hope you found the session really valuable, and we'll continue to do these and bring these to you as things develop and as things change. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.